with our Dark's Dilemma. So, Dark and Lovely, kick it off.
This week I decided that I wanted to do a little bit of definition and comparison. I'm going to start every week kind of trying to explain a term or something, but we do a lot of talking and we act like everyone who's listening to us knows exactly what we're talking about.
True, guilty as charged.
We've done that for two shows now, and so I'm thinking maybe we should explain some stuff to those of us, our friends who are looking in to kind of see what we do and who we are and what's going on. You know, we all have coworkers or friends who know that we are a little bit outside of the norm,
True.
but actually don't know what it's about. They only know marginal information, and it's usually misinformation. So,
Purpose of the show to educate and correct.
educate and correct. So my topic this week is going to be about swinging versus polyamory. So we're going to start with definitions first. Polyamory that's the easiest one to explain and to define because it simply means many loves.
Mm-hmm.
So polyamory basically is the act of having multiple romantic, for lack of a better word, relationships, emotionally connected, usually committed by something more than just conversation. It's usually oftentimes it tends to be men with multiple wives, as in some religious communities, but it can be a woman with many husbands or significant others. Swinging, however, is primarily sexual. Primarily. Now, Alan has gone to great lengths to describe the difference between social swinging and recreational swinging.
Right.
So, you know, that's kind of blurring the lines between the two. But generally speaking, for, you know, if you look it up in Wikipedia or anything else, swinging is often defined as having multiple sexual partners, not necessarily multiple relationship partners. Swinging also, you know, goes back as far. Wikipedia right now is saying the 60s is when it really took off, but
I think the Greeks and the Romans had a
lot more to do with that. But in its more modern form, it started as early as World War I, in some of my, or World War II. In some of my research, I found that it starts as early as goes as far back in its common form or current form. Goes back as far as World War II, where when, especially for military men who were in the Air Force, who were going away to fight in the war and their families were left back on the base, they often asked someone that they trusted, a friend of the family, to take care of their family while they were gone. And in some of those instances, that extended to taking care of the needs of their wife.
Okay, understood.
Which is where the whole wife swapping term, which is very common in swinger lingo, for those who only have marginal information, they think of swinging as wife swapping or wife sharing. We swingers don't really like that as much because it kind of limits the whole thought of, you know, being more expansive. It kind of sounds like only couples do it.
Right.
And so when a single person wants to participate, it kind of dampens that because, you know, most people have this knowledge, this understanding or this belief that it's only about sharing your wives. And so if you don't have a wife, you can't really be called a swinger. We hear that a lot. So that's kind of some, you know, just a little bit of background. Yes.
You mind if I jump in on that real quick?
Jump in.
Okay. So the reason why some of us dislike it, and me being specific, which is why I'm bringing this up, wife swapping seems to indicate that the woman is essentially a man's property, and therefore they get to swap them pretty much like their property or something to be used as chattel. And that's my primary reason for not liking it or trying to avoid that particular terminology. It seems to reinforce the feeling by some, and primarily men, where they can kind of come and do whatever they want. And my hostess here has said on a number of occasions,
Yes.
the difference between being public and private property. This is nothing for you to come in and feel that you are owed anything, that a woman,
Absolutely.
her only use for you is to take care of your urges. You know, that's not what this is supposed to be. It's not what most of us look at it as.
So you mean the female is not there to service the male?
Well, not solely. I mean, obviously she's servicing them, but it's also because she's getting something back. This isn't, you know, I come in and, hey, you bow down to me and do what I want because I'm the male.
You sure about that?
Well, yeah.
It's not supposed to be.
Well, I'm just
It
playing
happens
devil's
some-
advocate.
it happens
because-
sometimes.
That's not the way I and most, I'm going to say serious swingers. I was going to say real,
There
but
you
let me
go.
not do that because that's a judgment. Most serious swingers look at it as, you get a lot of guys who come into this, some still in couples, but most of them aren't, who their mindset
Thank
isn't
you.
correct, or let me say, isn't in line with what I'm referring to.
Right.
Again, I'm trying not to make judgments because,
Well, I'll make them.
again, I try to say that swinging is, there's just no right or wrong way to swing, but there is the right or wrong way to show respect.
Right.
So, what this boils down to is making sure that one shows the proper respect both to the couple, to the female, and to yourself.
Exactly. Also, you know, I want to reiterate what he said, that swinging should always be a mutual decision
Thank
for
you.
everyone involved.
Thank you.
So wife swapping is offensive to me because it says that I don't really have a choice
Exactly.
in it. But a lot of times it's me that says, yeah, I want to do that. So it's not just about swapping wives or even swapping partners or even sharing husbands. It's not just about that. It's about open and honest sexual experiences with other people, as opposed to polyamory, which is commitment to multiple people,
Yes.
which is a totally different subject.
But couldn't you do both?
There are those of us who kind of morph the two. We call ourselves poly swingers. My husband and I are of that breed.
That's why I thought about that.
My husband and I are swingers. We also are involved in a
There you
poly
go.
relationship.
Yes.
So, you know, there's nothing anywhere that says you can't kind of combine the two, although there are people in both sides who object to that. Just like there is in any lifestyle. There are people who, you know, feel like
Purist.
there are people who are purists. There are people who believe that it's not called swinging unless you're in a room full of a bunch of people and you're all engaging it. So you're not swinging unless you're at a party.
Or orgy.
Or
That's
an orgy.
basically what it sounds
right.
like.
And a lot of people think that swing parties are orgies.
But they're
and
not.
Oh, they can be.
They
Yes,
can be.
they can
They can be.
But generally
that's
speaking,
not
they're
the
not.
primary, right.
Because you'll find that a lot of swingers are a little
Very
bit,
prudish.
They're a little on the prudish side. You wouldn't think so, but they really are a little bit on the prudish side. They believe that, you know,
There's a
I'm
bunch
here.
of rules that need to be followed.
Right. There's a whole bunch of rules that we have
kissing.
to follow. There's, you know, there's no
I never
kissing.
understood that one.
Okay.
If it works for you,
I'm
you
gonna
do
come
you.
to that in a minute. I'm gonna come back to that. I'm gonna put a pin in it.
Okay.
Okay.
Real quick, if you're listening to this and want to chime in, the number's at the bottom.
Yes, please
Call,
feel free to call.
tweet.
Something.
202-627-0428.
Right.
Yay!
Or if you know me and you're a friend on my Facebook page, you can send me a message like my friend just did to ask me what the link was. hopefully she got it and she's watching now. So,
or just go to Nice and Naughty at Facebook, and the link and all that info is right there.
And it's there. And yeah, there's that. But going back to the discussion, there are people who feel like they're a purist and there's only one way to do it and that's the right way. And there's that. You find that in all aspects of our lives every day. But there are other people who consider themselves a little bit more open to
Go ahead.
To a little bit more open to other interpretations of it.
And we're going to get to those other interpretations right after this small break.
We already started discussing the morph between polyamory and swinging, which is the polyswing, which my husband and I are participants in. And then you have I'm drawing a blank. Okay. The poly lifestyle, I'm going to steer off into that for a little bit. The poly lifestyle is a little bit more, poly folks don't like swingers, generally speaking.
Because?
Because they believe that relationships are sacred and should be committed. And while you may have multiple relationship partners, your sex is only with those people.
And you can't have a committed relationship in a swing lifestyle?
They don't think so.
They don't think so.
They think it cheapens what they do.
Okay, but I just want our audience out there to be clear that is one opinion on
the purists.
Right.
When the polyamory purists feel like, no, you still have to be committed. It's just like monogamy, except there's more people.
There you go.
So you're still committed only to these people. You don't have sex outside of this family with anybody else. If you at some point become interested in someone else, everyone gets a say as to whether or not that person is, or whether you're allowed to date that person and decide, as a group, if that person is going to be joined to your family.
So basically what you're describing is swinging within a limited number of people.
They're not going to look at it that way.
They're not going to look at it that way because
realistically,
it doesn't.
that's what you're talking about.
Technically, no, it's not, because swinging is supposed to be the absence of emotion. So
I
if
disagree with that.
We're talking about two.
We disagree with that as well.
We're talking about. I'm not talking about what we believe. I'm talking about the purist beliefs on both sides.
Okay.
Purists believe that in swinging there should be no emotion whatsoever. There should be no emotional connection whatsoever. We don't like that. I like to have sex with my friends.
Right, but to me that doesn't sound like swinging. That sounds like just a fuck fest or orgy.
But that's what some folks believe it is. It's supposed to be sex with no strings. Whether or not you get together with them on multiple occasions, there's no strings, there's no commitment, there's no involvement outside. There's no involvement outside of this bed.
And that's the clarity that I wanted you to bring out, because I don't want listeners or viewers out there to think that swinging is basically first and foremost a fuck fest, because it's not. But you do have you do have groups in this area that solely concentrate on the physical act of swinging, which is basically just a sanctioned orgy. And there are a few groups out there, and if that's what you want, there's nothing wrong. Again, we're not making judgments on that, but understand that is what you're getting into. If you are getting into adding more partners in adventure, and also the potential for a relationship, is whether it's a friendship or adding someone into your marriage or your arrangement, then that is not an orgy or a fuck fest. You are looking at swinging as we look at it. And I just want that clarity out there for people who are listening.
Exactly. Well, that was a good point. I kind of took it.
Oh, I'm sorry, baby.
It's all good. It's okay.
We're kind of running over.
Oh, are we running over?
Freaky
okay.
stuff.
Okay.
Take it down. Mine won't take that long. It won't take longer when y'all join in.
Oh.
But yeah.
Is that a polite way of saying shut up?
We talk too much?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We talk too much. It's okay. But yeah, so that's kind of the definition of the kind of different schools of thought on by those who are fundamentalists, as I would like to call them,
yes,
in their purest sense of the word, those are the definitions, the differences between the two. Now there will always be some variation of both of those things within a bleeding of the two.
Yes.
And that's okay too. There's not a wrong way to do it. There's a wrong way to do it for you. For each individual person, absolutely, you kind of need to look at yourself and see what it is you want and what you're trying to achieve. And that's fine.
One size does not fit all.
No. And there's actually a lot of people, especially in the swing lifestyle, there's a lot of people who swing simply because they want to have sex, but they're not in a committed relationship right now. So they have sex, they go to parties or they do the swinging thing until they meet someone that they can be monogamous with, which is hilarious to me, but it happens. And for
that's
some
true.
people,
I've known it to happen to someone I know. So
and it works for them, and
yes,
that's fine. And there's nothing. I just
Or the opposite happens, where you have someone who swings until they find someone who swings too, and they decide, you know what, we're good together, and they leave the lifestyle. But then they always have that little phasing out period that I think is so much fun, because they're going to get all the extras they can get until then.
Right. Yeah, and I've only I only know of and personally know 2 people who have left the lifestyle and stayed gone.
Right.
I don't know many who leave and don't.
I think we know the same too, but
who don't leave and come back or try to dip their toe in the shower into the water at some point. There are some, and more power to everybody. Okay. I just need everybody to be honest.
Thank you.
So, to quote one of my favorite songs, the world don't groove to the beat of just one drum.
Okay.
What might be right for you may not be right for some.
Are you quoting Different Strokes?
Different strokes for different folks.
It's